And respected sir and madam, honorable teachers, colleagues, dear students and participants who have joined us from different time zones, a very good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and assalamu alaikum. My name is Nusrat Gulzar, and I am delighted to be your host for the evening. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar organized by the English Department, Dhaka University. This event is arranged as part of the initiative taken by the department to celebrate the centenary of the University of Dhaka. Our webinar today is on Leela Nag, the famous social reformer and political activist, and the first female to study at the University of Dhaka, as well as at the Department of English. The title of the webinar is Leela Nag, Breaking the Barriers. As you know, today is the first of the month of August, the month of mourning as well. Let us take this opportunity to pay our deepest respect to the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and most of his family members who left us forever on August 15, 1975. I now invite the Honorable Chair of the Department of English, Professor Dr. Nevin Farida, to deliver her welcome remarks.
Thank you, Nusra.
Madam, over to you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening from Dhaka. On behalf of the English Department, I would like to welcome you all to today's online event on the occasion of our alma maters and our beloved department's centennial. Honored to have our respected guests, teachers, alumni, invited teachers, current students, and above all our speakers with us this evening. At the outset, as has been mentioned, the Department of English pays its tribute to the father of the nation and his family members in this month of mourning and prays for the salvation of the departed souls. We must acknowledge that Bangabandhu himself was a believer in women empowerment and always dreamt of a society of all kinds of discrimination. Today's event also showcases the life and activities of one such woman, Leela Nag, also known as Leela Nag, who dedicated her entire life rebelling against British colonial power and fought for nationalistic causes. Had it not been for her, Dhaka University would have remained a university only for male students for a long time. She had to fight her way into the university, as Dhaka University administration in 1921 was reluctant to take female students. But due to her extraordinary results, she got gold medal from Bethune Kolkata College. And because of her extraordinary results, the then Vice Chancellor, the first Vice Chancellor, Philip Joseph Hartog, gave special permission to for her admission into the English department for the 2-year MA program. She was one of the 2 female students to get admitted in 1921, the other being Sushma Sen Gupta, who ultimately could not continue her degree. So among the 877 students, she was one of them, but she was the first female graduate to the graduation in 1923 from our department. Today we have approximately 53,000 students, excluding research students, and amongst them female students are a little above 12,000. And with regards to our department, it's a very close tie, 700 something students, 300 something plus 300 some male and female students. So it's a very close tie. And in the first year, last intake in the first year, we had 167 students, out of which 87 were female and 80 male students. So I wonder what Leela Nag would have felt if she were alive today, if she's heard of the statistics. So in current times, it's not surprising to find this enormous number of girl students pursuing higher education. We have definitely come a long way, and the future prospects for receiving higher education for girls seem brighter. certainly, but it is still necessary for us to fondly revisit from time to time and acknowledge and appreciate the struggle of pioneering women like Leela Nag, who fearlessly took the first step in paving a path for women emancipation in our part of the world. As such, we felt it necessary to celebrate this iconic woman's tremendous feat. And on that note, I feel proud and privileged to present today's topic of the webinar, Leela Nag, Breaking the Barriers. Today, I speak here as the chairperson of the department, welcoming everyone to celebrate Leela Nag's life. I take pride in representing the department. I must say that I've been very fortunate to reach where I am today because of the support that I got from all corners. But not everyone has been so fortunate. And on that note, I'd like to share that my mother herself, she went to a boys' school. My grandfather had to send her to a boys' school because there were no girls' school within that area in her village. So she was the lone Muslim girl who would go in a covered horse carriage and had to attend classes. She was the lone Muslim girl along with one more Hindu girl. But unfortunately, her education had to be discontinued because the elderly neighbors objected to her going outside the house and attending classes alongside boys. So that was the end of a tale, a sad tale. I'm sure many of us here of our generation can correlate with. Many of our mothers have been unfortunate in that sense. But things have definitely changed, and I hope that this discrimination is slowly going to end one day. No more for my sob stories. We are grateful. With gratitude, I must really say thank you to our speakers, and I'm sure they need no introduction, but it is my humble duty to introduce them to you. Firstly, we have Ms. Rashida Khatun Chaudhry, popularly known as Rashida Chaudhry. She is the Executive Director of Campaign for Popular Education, who has been working with the National Coalition of more than 1,000 NGOs, researchers, and educator groups in Bangladesh. She was the advisor during caretaker government for 3 ministries, for the Ministry of Primary and Mass Education, Ministry of Women and Children Affairs, and Ministry of Cultural Affairs. She is a co-founder of Global Citizenship Education and an elected member of Collective Consultation of NGOs, Coordination Group of UNESCO. Additionally, she is a member secretary of Education Watch, which regularly reviews the implementation of the status of the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is quality education in Bangladesh. Above all, she's our alumna, who completed her honors and masters from this department in 1970 and 72 respectively. I have had the privilege of working with her in the EDAS Executive Committee. She was the president of the Executive Committee of English Department Alumni Society. And she has been very supportive in giving us funding for the renovation work of the department. I must mention that without her enthusiasm, I don't think we would have arranged this webinar so promptly. Thank you, Rashida. Next, we have our very own Miss Farhanaz Rabbani, who is currently Associate Professor in the department. After her BA Honors and MA in English Literature, she completed her MS in Written Communication from National Louis University, Illinois, USA. She has contributed to the writing of 2 books for the department published under the British Council project. Her research interests include writing, cultural studies, popular and folk culture, and role in the evolution of the cultural identity of Bangladesh. An extremely polite, hardworking faculty of our department, she has the ability to put off almost everything during any crisis with a smile on her face. And I can still see her smile. Last but not the least, There'll be a slideshow prepared and presented by Mr. Syed Nakib Sadi. He's our ex-student who graduated quite recently in 2017. He is currently working as a lecturer for Metropolitan University in Sylhet. Our webinar, in fact, is going to begin with the presentation by Sadi. I must mention that in order to collect information for this webinar, Sadi even visited Leela Nag's native town in Maulavi Bazar and got some very rich, authentic information regarding Leela Nag's family, her home, her mother's school, and he'll be sharing some of his experiences with us today. A special thank you again, and another reason, Sadi, because you are our lone male participant in this webinar. To conclude, you can say that Leela Nag is an inspiration for all of us. She showed how no barrier is strong enough to keep one within confinement. We must create our own opportunities to break these barriers, barriers of illiteracy, injustice, discrimination, prejudice, inequality, etc., etc. But I must add one more thing, that in order for that to happen, women need the moral support and encouragement from their male counterparts. Without that, this journey and struggle will be a very grueling one. So let me not take up any more of your valuable time. Everyone, I'm sure, is eagerly waiting to listen to our speakers. I once again, on behalf of the English department, welcome everyone from different parts of the world for joining this webinar. Please stay safe and thank you.
Thank you, madam, for your wonderful words. Now, before we start, I would just like to inform you that, as you know, that today's session is being recorded, and I would also request you to mute yourselves when the presenters will be speaking. We will also have a Q&A session at the end of this webinar. So if you have any questions or any observations, presenters, please feature. You can also raise your hands and the floor will be given to you. During that time, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. So now we're moving on to our first segment. Syed Nakib Sadi, one of our former students, will share his PowerPoint presentation on Leela Nag. And as Madam said, we will also listen to his experience of visiting Leela Nag's ancestral home and her established school. Sadi, over to you.
Thank you, Madam. Thanks to Naveen Farida, Madam, for her warm introduction. I would like to start my presentation first with the mini documentary that I prepared based on my visit to Leela Nag's ancestral home in Pachgaon, Maulavi Bazar, that I and my team prepared for this particular webinar. Keep watching. Thank you.
Leela Nag, also known as Leela Roy, was one of the foremost revolutionaries of Bengal, a torchbearer of women education and a social activist of legendary proportion of undivided India. But most importantly, she was a daughter of Bangladesh. She was born into an aristocrat family on October 2, 1900. Originally from Barodi, Dhaka, the earlier generation of the Nag family migrated to Pachgaon village of Rajnagar Upazila, Maulavi Bazar. Her father, Rai Bahadur Girish Chandra Nag, who retired as deputy magistrate of Dhaka district, and her mother, Kunjalata Nag, influenced Leela's early life. They instilled the foundation of patriotism and empathy in her. The first female student of Dhaka University and also the Department of English, Leela Nag passed her MA in English in 1923. She had a unique blend of academic excellence and never-ending love for her motherland. She was a gold medalist from Bethune College and also an anti-British activist, being a member of secret societies such as Anushilan, Juganthor and Sri Shankar. In 1923, she along with 12 of her friends founded the Dipali Sangha for the empowerment of women. During 1923 to 1929, she founded various girls' schools including Dipali School, Shikha Bhavan, Shikha Niketan and Nari Shikha Mandir, which is now known as Share Bangla Balika Mahavidyalaya. She was the founder editor of Jayasri, a women's monthly journal which was published with the blessings of poet Rabindranath Tagore in 1931. She was the first woman detainee from Dhaka under Bengal Ordinance Act of 1924. She was detained in different prisons from 20 December 1931 to 7 October 1938. She became member of the Women's Subcommittee of the National Planning Commission, while Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was the president of All India Congress. From doing massive relief and rescue work to fighting British oppression in field level, she is the epitome of women empowerment. And these are just snippets of the glorious life she led and the contributions she made. She deserves every bit of respect and homage for her contribution to Bangladesh as well as the Indian subcontinent. Now the question whether we have been able to honor her memory still remains. A recent visit to her ancestral home led me to believe otherwise. A 30 minutes drive from Maulid Bazar city, Leela Nag's ancestral home in Pachgaon Rajnagar has no sign of her existence. Right beside the serpentine road of the locality, however, stands a government primary school called Kunjalata Government Primary School. Apparently, this school was established by Kunjalata Nag in memory of her late father. Nag's home was just adjacent to the school. I would have missed that entirely if I had not asked an elderly passerby for directions. Sitting idly on the playground of the primary school were few school-going young people who did not know anything about the particular house that we were looking for. However, they accompanied me to the desired location, and there was nothing that resembled the earlier photographs of the old bungalow. Merely the base of an old bungalow and a relatively new one-storied structure was there. The residents, as they claim, took lease from the then Pakistan government. The court may decide on the legal issues, but I felt no presence of the memory of Leela Nag there. Not a signboard, not a sculpture, nothing. The only thing that still bears the trace of her family is probably the tiny sign that has been placed on the wall of the primary school founded by her mother. That too suffers in silence. As we celebrate Leela Nag as the first female student of the University of Dhaka as well as the Department of English, we have to remember that she was more than just an alumnus. She is a pride of our nation. If we fail to celebrate her contribution to Bangladesh as well as the Indian subcontinent, we actually fail to acknowledge a significant part of the glorious history of Bangladesh. We also fail to acknowledge the role of English department alumni of Dhaka University in empowering the women of Bangladesh and in shaping the nation.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching the documentary. Hope you liked it. Well, now I'd like to thank Department of English, University of Dhaka for giving me this opportunity to share my experience with you all in this webinar. I'd like to extend my gratitude to my teacher, Dr. Nevin Farida, for confiding in me and organizing this wonderful event. My sincere gratitude to Mr. Soyad Nazrul Islam, Mr. Dipankar Mohanto, for helping me with the research activity. I'd also like to thank Mullik Wasiuddin Tami for lending me with his voice, Tani Ahmed for the wonderful photographs, and Shoboshati Ninoy for the videography. As I explored into the life of Leela Nag, I must say, I felt surprised. I think for most of us, Leela Nag is just merely a piece of information in so-called general knowledge books. That is, she's the first female student of the Department of English and the University of Dhaka. The act can be considered as mistaking a mild ray of sun for the sun itself. The multidimensional socio-political activities on national level that you were involved in really deserves more attention, as it is a part of our glorious history. I had the opportunity to visit her ancestral home in Pachgaon Mole Bazaar a few days back amidst the pandemic. Following the COVID protocol, I spoke to local youngs and adults. I felt saddened to observe the current condition of the bungalow. There was absolutely nothing left over there, except for the elderly people. Nobody seemed to recognize her name, except for one of them. The people around the vicinity of her home couldn't tell me where her home was located. There was not even a signboard indicating to her past memory. So there's two possibilities. History is being wiped out deliberately or due to negligence. None of them is expected. Other speakers in this webinar will focus on her life and work. After joining the rest of the sessions, I want you to ask yourself as a citizen of Bangladesh, whether we were able to show her the love, respect, and attention that she deserves. The least we can do to honor her is probably restore her ancestral home. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sadi, for your wonderful presentation. We also appreciate that you have worked really hard to collect some authentic information on Leela Nag. Thank you very much. Now we will begin our first presentation. Our speaker now is Ms. Farnas Rabbani, Associate Professor at the Department of English, and I request Madam to present her paper. The title of her presentation is The Legacy of Leela Nag, Multi-Generational Feminism in the Department of English, Dhaka University. Farnas, Madam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nusrat. Thank you. And thank you, Nevin Appa, for the wonderful introduction. Assalamu alaikum and good evening and good afternoon to everyone here, or good morning, wherever you are. As you have heard, my presentation is focused on the Department of English and Leela Nag's involvement in it and how her legacy has been carried over by other generations of women in the department. So I'm going to share the screen. All right, can you see the screen?
Yes, madam, we can see your screen.
Okay, so I just want to begin the presentation with an apology because a 15 or 20-minute talk does not do justice to the legendary women that I'm going to talk about today. I will be talking about Leela Nag and two other female faculty members of the department and how Leela Nag's ideologies have influenced or may be considered to be an important influence on the achievements of the other two female faculty members. So there are two parts to my presentation. The first part, I will talk about Leela Nag in brief because we've already had an introduction from Sadi's presentation, and I'm eagerly looking forward to listening to Rashida Appa's talk as well. So that will be a very brief introduction to Leela Nag, and then I'll move on to a discussion of Nadira Begum and Professor Razia Khan Amin's achievements in the Department of English. So as we have heard that Leela Nag, iconic figure, and she was actually groomed from her family because of her father and grandfather's fierce passion about for patriotism and nationalistic spirit, and her mother's charitable activities. She was groomed as a fighter. She was, she naturally excelled in everything she did. And because of her excellent results, she applied for admission at Dhaka University. And breaking the barriers, that's the title of our webinar today. She broke the barriers in 1921. Yes, she needed a special permission from the VC, one of the first two women admitted to Dhaka University. And in 1923, she was the first woman to obtain an MA degree from the Department of English. But that is not all. We know that she's a social activist, but I have created a chart, and there are two parts to the chart. On the left-hand side, you can see all her activities, her achievements, her endeavors to empower women. And on the right-hand side, I have her social and political achievements as well. These are just, this is just a brief account. What I wanted to focus on here is the bold-faced points. In 1923, she founded Dipali Shongo, which was a rebellion training institute. In 1927 and 28, she established the first self-defense institute for girls in Bengal. Now, for a person like me who had no idea about Leela Nag, this was amazing. A self-defense institute for women back in the 1920s is a visionary step. And this actually shows how much she was invested in the emancipation of women of her society in that time, in the 1920s. She also arranged the Dipali exhibition, which promoted vocational training for women, which is another side of women emancipation. So she did not just focus on women education. She had founded, I think, 12 free primary schools for girls. And one of those schools was later renamed as Kamunesa Girls School, I believe. Not only did she focus on education, she also focused on vocational training, and she also focused on protecting women, empowering women, arming them so that they can protect themselves in the society, so that they can voice their opinions in the society. So this is very interesting to note that sitting here now in 2021, we are sending all our daughters to Taekwondo and karate classes, but she thought about this in 1927. About her social and political achievements, because of her mother's charitable activities, Leela Nag was imbued with a natural instinct to help the underprivileged, the victims, the sufferers, those who are in pain. 1921, she was a student of Dhaka University when she helped to raise funds for the victims of the Bengal floods. In 1947, while the whole region was going through political turmoil, she set up relief camps for victims of the Noakhali riots. And in 1947, she ran homes for refugees from East Bengal and abandoned women. From the political point of view, Leela Nag herself was arrested several times, as Sadi just mentioned, from 1931 to 38, and she was the first woman detainee under the Bengal Ordinance Act. Again, she broke the barriers. I see her as breaking the barriers in each and every step that she takes. It's important. In 1931, a woman being arrested so many times, it was unconventional, unthinkable, but she proudly did it. She was, she had fierce nationalistic pride in what she did. And she was, in 1947, she became the only Bengali woman to be elected to the Constituent Assembly of Bengal. So Leela Nag actually broke barriers on so many levels. I found it very difficult to label her as a feminist or an activist. It's very difficult to compartmentalize her activities into a certain, theological concept. So while I was doing research for this presentation, I came across this model. Now, this model was developed by Moyer. He's a US senator, and he developed this map, the movement action plan, this model of a social activist. What are the 4 roles of a social activist? So a social activist has to be a citizen, a reformer, a rebel, and a change agent. Leela Nag encompasses all these 4 roles and even more. She's a woman who was born in 1900. In 1921, while the European feminists were struggling for suffragette movement for their voting rights, Leela Nag was establishing self-defense centers for women in this region. So I find her as a feminist activist, so she is a dynamic person, and it is very difficult to confine her to any kind of feminism whatsoever. So based on that, I would like to focus now on what I mean by multi-generational feminism, because the title of my presentation has this term. Now, when we talk about feminism, of course, we are familiar with waves of feminism, but different waves of feminism have problems. Critics have said that it's not appropriate to differentiate different waves of feminism. Feminism should be a continuous study, a continuous development. So when we talk about the continuity of feminism throughout history, these particular terms come up: intergenerational feminism, transgenerational feminism, intersectional feminism. Intergenerational feminism, of course, is the feminism that is observed from one generation to another. Transgenerational feminism is also used especially for describing trauma, the common trauma that is experienced by women of different generations. Intersectional feminism, which is a term coined in 1989 by Crenshaw, actually refers to the feminism, the common feminist ordeals, the common problems that women face throughout different social and racial classes. In my presentation today, I chose the term multi-generational because intergenerational feminism also has a criticism. There is a problem with intergenerational feminism. If, according to Ascali, based on a UN organized conference, the problem of intergenerational feminism is the hegemonic seniority. When we talk about generational feminism, obviously the aspect of senior and junior comes up. There is a problem with that. The younger people feel a distance from the seniors whenever we label them as senior and junior, old generation and new generation. I do not believe in that. I want to focus on the multi-generational mobilization of intergenerational feminism. So multi-generational organizing combines shared learning, trust, and respect, creates a space for feminists from different age groups and backgrounds, and it strengthens intergenerational women's movements. And it helps to develop a collective understanding of histories, develop vision relevant to different generations. So this is how I see, this is what I want to point out today, that Leela Nag's feminist activism in her generation, how has that translated to activism later? While Leela Nag was engaged in all these activities, breaking barriers everywhere, what was happening to the Department of English? Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, my focus is on the department. 20 years after Leela Nag, 15 years after Leela Nag graduated, in 1937, the first female teacher was recruited at Dhaka University Department of English. Her name was Charupama Bose. And then, of course, Miss A.G. Stock came in. But I'm more interested in 1955, when Nadira Begum joined the department as a young lecturer. Nadira Begum comes from a very illustrious family, and she is the sister of a national professor, Kabir Chaudhry, and a Shahid Munir Chaudhry, a martyred intellectual, and Firdausi Majumdar, iconic theater activist in our country. So naturally, just like Leela Nag was groomed by her family, Nadira Begum was also groomed by her family. She developed as a very socially vigilant, politically active person. And when she joined the department as a student, she actively took part in leftist activities, and she was a member of the Communist Chapter Shangho. Now, what is more interesting is, while she was a student in 1948, she directly participated in mass movements, in mass protests. Just as Leela Nag was engaged in anti-British movements, Nadira Begum was engaged in anti-West Pakistan movement. So in 1948, the political turmoil was everywhere, leading up to the language movement of 1952. On 19th March, movement was, there was a protest rally held to ensure the rights of the fourth class employees of Dhaka University, which is very interesting because Leela Nag was actually there fighting for the rights of the unheard. And she was there with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and other protesters. And she was imprisoned for 3 years. Just like Leela Nag, she was imprisoned, a woman in the 1940s, going to jail because of her political activism. She was extremely courageous and brave. And they were expelled from Dhaka University, but later their expulsion was retraced. So along with Leela Nag, in 1947, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Kullan Chandra Dasgupta, Naimuddin Ahmed, and Muhammad Wadud were also arrested. And in Miss A.G. Stock's book, Memoirs of Dhaka University, she does mention Nadira Begum. It's very difficult to find information on Nadira Begum. Not many people have written on her. So Miss A.G. Stock in her book refers to Nadira Begum as N, and she recalls that Nadira Begum was the only woman standing beside Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, fearlessly fighting for the rights of the fourth-class employees. Now, if we use Moyer's model here, we can easily say that Nadira Begum was a citizen, very grounded to the society that she belonged to, and she was also a rebel because she broke all the conventions. She knew how to say no. That's what a rebel does, according to Moyer's model. And she was a reformer. She wanted to change the society. She wanted to, give voice to the marginalized people, the fourth-class employees of Dhaka University. So she is known as the woman who broke the barricades in a Daily Star news article in 2019, I think. Her role is mentioned in the language movement because among the women who were at the front of the protest rallies, women who removed the barricades from the streets, Nadira Begum was one of them. So 30 years apart, we see Leela Nag and then we see Nadira Begum, breaking barriers in a very strong manner. And then while Nadira Begum was in the department, she joined the English department in 1955. Another young student also entered the Department of English with her own idealism. Now I'm going to focus on Razia Khan Amin, Professor Razia Khan Amin. Just like Leela Nag and Nadira Begum, Razia Madam also comes from an illustrious family. And she was deeply influenced by her father's political activism. Her father was the Speaker of the Pakistan Constituent Assembly. And she, after doing her BA and MA in Department of English in 1961, she did her MA in English Literature from the University of Birmingham. And in 1962, she joined the Department of English. And she was also the chairperson from 1982 to 1985. Razia Khan Amin was a writer, a poet, a columnist, a journalist, a theater actor. She was a prolific writer, a dynamic personality. And we all had the pleasure of being her student. I had the pleasure of being her student in the second year. This is a list of all her Bangla novels that actually have been appreciated nationally and internationally as well. And she received a lot of awards. She received the Bangla Academy Award, the Onanya Literature Award, the Ekushe Podok. But today I want to focus on her English poems. Although her Bangla creative pieces are very well known and very well received by our nation, by our country, but I've seen that not many people have taken the trouble to read her collections of poems. She had a total of 4 collections of poems, 2 of them in Bangla, 2 of them in English. Argus Under Anesthesia was published in 1976, and Cruel April was published in 1977. These books are out of print right now. I had to go to a lot of trouble to get scanned copies of these books last year, around December and this year, January. But I have scanned copies of the poems. And when I read the poems, I was blown away. I was blown away by the intensity of emotions and the powerful, powerful poetic style that she had. In the foreword of the book, Razia Khan Omnibus Edition, which was released last year, Sirajul Islam Chaudhry sir has said, indeed, she had a poet in her who refused to be silent. In what she wrote, there was an anguish arising out of arising out of dissatisfaction. Now we see that dissatisfaction in her poems. Argus Under Anesthesia, published in 1976, the very title itself, I believe, is a protest. Argus is the 100-eyed giant according to Greek mythology, and Razia Khan Amin uses the symbol of Argus to examine the liberation war from various perspectives. This poem is very long. Because it's long, I could not, show you the whole poem, but I am just, showing you certain quotations. Now, there is a quotation. This is a quotation from the poem Argus Under Anesthesia. A mother frenzied by the roar of mortars throttled her whining infant. It's life for the life of millions. All right. So this actually, it's a very powerful, these are very powerful lines. A mother frenzied by the roar of mortars of the independence war, the liberation war, throttled her own infant. It's life for the life of millions. She's sacrificing the life of her own child for the life of millions. And then we have another section from Argus Under Anesthesia, where in the middle part of the screen, you can see, I'm reading from it. What if these livid plants which bore the roses should awake in a terrible resurrection, armed like Argus with the myriad eyes and with their omniscient cruel light burn the hypnotic tongue of demagogues. We see a change of tone in here. And here, resurrection, by resurrection, she means the resurrection of all the martyred people, all the people who were massacred in the 1971 liberation war. What if they all rose again? So through her own, own words, in her own subtle manner, she is celebrating the sacrifice of the Mukti Jodhas, the martyred intellectuals of 1971, and she is, idolizing them. In another poem, in the same book, Argus Under Anesthesia, God in the Goblet is a poem that directly addresses the issue of the martyred intellectuals. And she wrote this poem after receiving news of the death of all our intellectuals. And here, as you can see, if you can see the screen, Munir, Kaisar, Fazle, these names are mentioned. They're all the intellectuals, the teachers, the scholars who were killed, who were killed by the West Pakistanis. And in the second page, I want to read the part where it says the murderers came. The murderers came on the orders of a madman who had drowned his God in the goblet to declare holy war against a people of his own faith. Between fits of drunken stupor, he had blurted out his desire to see a race noted for fine brains reduced in number. Although Razia Khan Amin, we do not see her in the streets like Leela Nag or Nadira Begum, but we see her protesting through her words. We see her protesting. We see her agonizing over the pain and sufferings of her people. And along with patriotic fervor, along with nationalistic spirit, along with political activism in her poems, we also see her highlighting the pains and struggles of women. In this poem, Time to Grow Young, which is written in her other collection of poetry, Cruel April, she talks about how the disillusionment of women when they have to conform to certain roles in the society. The frustration, the boredom is clearly illustrated here. And towards the middle of the first page, I'm reading a few lines from there. Oh God, it does take time, all this polishing and looking chic, keeping up with the world's tantrums and its favorites. It does take time. So that sense of fatigue with with women having to conform with social conventions is expressed here, but that is not all. In her other poem, St. Joan in Prison, she says that I will rise to you. I will rise to you on the wings of this new strength, my citadel of pain. The tone instantly changes. There is a huge difference in tone from the previous poem and this poem. Here, occupied in St. John, and she is saying that she will rise again. Women will rise again. My swallowed sobs in the crowd, the clenched fists and jaw are my rekindled youth. She urges women to join together and to rise again, to speak against social injustices, to voice their concerns, to share their pains and sufferings. And the last poem that I have from Cruel April, this is a very poignant poem because it reminds me of the fourth and fifth waves of feminism. I'll read, this is a story of a young girl and her husband. Obviously, the title indicates the husband is older, much older than the old man and the girl. And in this scene, we find the girl who is tying her hair and she's tying the ribbon and the husband is helping her. And the husband notices that the girl looks very pale. And when the husband asks her, "Are you all right?" She says, "I am fine. I'm okay." And then on the second page, if you notice at the beginning, "But you are so pale tonight." The husband repeatedly says, "You look so pale." "No, no, it's all right. I'll get you an," and the husband says, "No, no, it's all right. I'll get you an aspirin." The girl closes her eyes. I closed my eyes and thought of women whose bosoms heaved day and night, not in ecstasy, but grief, over greedy and ineffectual men trembling through the love ritual. I gave out a shriek. These lines, I think when I read these lines, it reminded me of the 2012 gang rape in India. It reminded me of all the global Me Too movements that are happening all over the world. This poem actually is about child marriage. It's about marital rape. And this poem was written in 1957. This is how I have interpreted this poem. Can you imagine when we are today struggling with issues like rape and sexual harassment due to Harvey Weinstein scandals throughout the whole world, the Me Too movement has been mobilized. Razia Khan Amin wrote this bold, a poem about this, and I shrieked, and it was not a happy shriek, not in ecstasy, but grief. So the pain is there. It's a very unconventional poem. It's shocking. I'm sure it was shocking back in 1957. I recall one of our ex-students who wrote a poem on marital rape and read it out in a department program a few years ago. I don't know if she's here. And I remember some of the members of the audience were uncomfortable. Women emancipation does not happen automatically. Women have to speak out. And who are the women who have to, bring all these injustices to the foreground? It's women like Leela Nag, women like Nadira Begum, women like Razia Khan Amin. Razia Khan Amin uses art and literature to express her anger, her anguish. Leela Nag and Nadira Begum were physically there in the streets to express their anguish. In the book Omnibus Edition, Kaisar Haq justly says, I think Razia Khan is a post-romantic modern poet. A lot of people wonder if she was a feminist. I would suggest she did not need feminism. She was liberated from that. When I think of her, the word Shakti comes to mind. Just as it is difficult to label Leela Nag as a feminist, she was more than a feminist. She was a social activist and a feminist activist. And Amitav Kaur also writes in the book about Razia Khan. And I think these last lines are very important. Razia Khan does not need a label. The more she evades definition, the more august the title we devise for her. In her remarkable poem called 21st February, she writes, "So your grim procession now retreats in silent dignity, glad to be forgotten by a pack of liars." The last few lines from her poem, 21st February here, clearly reminds us of the reclusive nature of Razia Khan Amin. She never demanded any attention. She was very hesitant to publicize her English poems. I believe her poems were, collected by her friends and family and published again in 2014. So we have this silent dignity in Razia Khan Amin. Nadira Begum, we do not know if she received any national awards, any awards for her contribution in the language movement, for her contribution in the rights of the podcast employees of Dhaka University, for her contribution in political activism. We do not find any evidence of that. Nadira Begum later, became a reclusive figure because of her marriage. She married a CSP officer, and she had to remove herself from political activism. And Leela Nag, as Nevinappa pointed out at the beginning of the presentation, not many people have done research on her. So these are the women who have who have continued with their feminist activism silently, with dignity, without asking for any attention. In the glitz and glamour of the globalized world today, the media frenzied globalized world, this is the lesson we should learn from these iconic women. And if I had more time, I would talk about the other female faculty teachers who are creative writers and who are prolific writers. And I would also talk about the graduates of the English department who have influenced the national, who have created an impact in the national level in Bangladesh over the years in different sectors, in the corporate sector, in the art and literary sector. So this is how I want to finish my presentation, that the Department of English is proud and very honored to have these distinguished women as a part of the department, and their legacy is the silent dignity that they had in their works and in their literary creations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Farnaz Madam, for your excellent presentation. We have learned so much from you today about Leela Nag, Nadira Begum, and Madam Firdaus Azim. So now let's move on to our next presentation. Our speaker now is Ms. Rashida K. Chaudhry, our Honorable IDA's alumna, and I request her to deliver her talk. Madam, over to you.
Thank you, dear moderator. I don't have any PowerPoint presentation. Whatever I'm going to say may not have power or, points. But what I would like to say really on behalf of many of the, alumni English department, and on behalf of the women's movement, particularly here in Bangladesh as an active member. So distinguished panelists, particularly foreigners, and the chair of our department. I'm very lucky to have her, and she invited me, so it's a wonderful thing to be here with all of you and other faculty members who are present here, respected ex-teachers. I know some of them are here listening to us of our department, friends who have joined from different parts of the world, and students, dear students who are also listening or watching us. Thank you for being here with us today. Assalamu alaikum. Well, thanks to our department, wonderful program. And I was listening with attention, to what Naki was presenting, what Farana was talking about. Thanks again to our department for organizing this event, particularly on a day when we have started the month of mourning, the brutal killing of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu, and his family. Let's pay our homage to our great leader, father of the nation. To do that, because Bangabandhu, who broke all barriers, he never compromised with anything that undermines the human spirit. And may his soul rest in peace. And what a great topic today to discuss on this very day. Let me quote from what Leela Nag said as a revolutionary who broke the barriers. In 1939, when she chaired a meeting of hundreds of women those days in Sylhet, and she said, I am quoting, I quote, আমাদের জানা দরকার আমাদের আদর্শ কি, অর্থাৎ আমরা কি চাই। আমরা চাই এমন এক রাষ্ট্রিক, সামাজিক ও অর্থনৈতিক ব্যবস্থা গড়ে তুলতে যাতে প্রচুরতম লোকের প্রভূততম কল্যাণ সাধিত হয়। And that was the motto of Bangabandhu, who also broke the barriers. So this is a wonderful occasion to discuss. And Leela Nag, who broke the barriers of traditional thinking that undermined human spirit, dignity, and freedom. We have seen from Nakib's presentation what she was, what she was doing. And from Farhana's presentation, wonderful presentation. Thank you, Farhana, for that. I have been enriched by that. And all of us, I suppose. And the wonderful presentation has actually chronologically made how Leela Nag emerged and how it paved the way for other women leaders at Dhaka University. I feel privileged really as an introduction of Dhaka University. We are celebrating 100 years of this citadel of learning and 50 years of our independence. This university produced great leaders who led us, political leaders, social movement leaders, entrepreneurs, public functionaries, who have been showing us the way to how to lead the nation. But Leela Nag is our own, our departments. Many other people are there. This university produced wonderful people, great leaders. But Leela Nag is a product of Dhaka University English department. That's our heritage, and we have to take pride in this. She was the first female graduate, all of us know, of our department, but her whole life was dedicated to protect human rights and freedom of people from all walks of life. All of us know how she got enrolled. That's an old story, everyone knows. How she established Dipali Shongo, Sri Shongo, wonderfully explained, illustrated by Farhanas. But many of us, we don't even know that these 3 units she had under the Dipali Shongo or Sri Shongo, these were camouflaged programs. And behind the scenes, all these women or trainees were trained how to protect themselves and how to protect the country from the British Raj, how to free the country. So she used to teach them karate, kung fu, those days in the 30s, 1930s. This was Leela Nag. And she led actually the anti-British Raj movement with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bosu, Anil Rai and others. In 1940s, she was jailed for 6 years. But how many of us know that she hoisted the flag of independent India while she was in Dinajpur jail? She was that kind of a revolutionary. and her jail sentence was extended. That was Leela Nag. Many of us didn't even know how much she made. In 1938, she organized this huge big rally, 39 actually, what I was talking about, February 39 in Sylhet. And Tagore wrote about it, that he never saw such a big rally of women anywhere in India. This was Leela Nag, our own product. In the 30s, what Farah mentioned, she actually established that Nari Shikha Mandir. Many of you could go and see near the Ittefaq office, which is the Shere Bangla Mohila Mahavidyalaya now. This Nari Shikha Mandir, so small, little, you can't even see it, but it was quite big in those days. How we have actually minimized her presence in many of these institutions. And I feel ashamed of that because she was a symbol to us. But why did we do it? I don't know. But when in those days, she became a mobilizer, a movement leader, and a strong promoter of civil and political rights. How many women in those days used to do it? She believed in physical fitness of women. Many of us, we know about Rokeya Sakhawat Hussain, Jahanara Imam, Priti Lata, and many others. We salute them. But Leela Nag was not only talking, was not only giving speech, she was practicing what she was preaching. That was the difference, a real activist in that sense of the term. And it happened 100 years back. That's what we have to understand. Leela Nag is our department's product, our heritage. Let's feel it, adore the feeling, and pay our respect to her. Before I finish, because I would like to listen to the questions from our students or maybe from faculty members, I come from that land where Leela Nag was born. So I know so much about the socio-cultural scenario at that time that was prevalent at that time. But before I finish, I would like to place 4-point demand to the university authorities, to our decision makers. As somebody who joined the 7th March address of our big leader, great leader, I was sitting there. We boycotted the university, 71. 7th March, Bhashan, Bangabandhu. We boycotted, we joined the freedom movement. As somebody from that generation, as a human rights activist, as a development worker, and as a proud alumnus of our department, English department, I would like to place 4-point demands before I finish to our university authorities, our decision maker. Please allow me. First point, Dhaka University should name any hall that is coming up in the name of Leela Nag. We should promote that demand. It was placed by Professor Longolal Sen in 1996 in the syndicate. I don't know why it didn't happen. I don't know whether it will be happening, but we should demand it. My first point demand. The second point, Dhaka University should provide a research grant to the students of English department for doing more research, more documentation, like what Nakib has so nicely done, on Leela Nag, our own product. Number 3, this is a request to our department and to EDUS, English Department Alumni Society, who facilitated the process of refurbishing our teachers' common room, to name our teachers' common room, our department's common room as Leela Nag. There should be a plaque with her name, her contribution. We should recognize her, not only as a female graduate, but our own product. Number 4, demand. The 4th point that I would like to make. Last but not the least, Dhaka University should initiate a process and lobby with local administration, the decision makers, to restore her home from the occupation group who belong to a Razakar family. I feel ashamed to say that even when we are celebrating 50 years of independence of Bangladesh, the family, the property of Leela Nag is being occupied by a Razakar family. The person who is now occupying, his father was even tried by the War Crimes Tribunal. But because he died before the tribunal finished its task, it's now a question with the court. But Dhaka, the local administration, including the local people, Nakib must be knowing, they are demanding that Dhaka University should take a step to lobby with decision makers to restore it from the occupation groups, the Razakar family, and make it, transform it into a museum where Department of English name will be there. Let's demand those and pay our respect to our great leader, to our great missionary, our great activist, Leela Nag, who was a product of English Department, Dhaka University. Thank you so much for listening. But let's not only talk, but also do something about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rashida.
May I say something? Nusrat, may I
Sure,
say
sir.
something? Rashida
Yes,
Chaudhary, madam.
sure, sir.
I wholeheartedly join or tie my voice with Rashida madam's words. Those are mine also. I take some personal satisfaction and I congratulate. I have already done that. Navin, chairperson of our department, to have organized for organizing this program on this particular day and a banner, and very relevant words have been uttered by Madam Rashida Chaudhary. So let us take personal satisfaction because I have a humble feeling that Leela Nag, even in case of our own department, fell into sort of a comparative oblivion. And I personally tried to bring to that, even by writing in our alumni news bulletin and on some other fora. And that's how the legacy that Leela Nag had left behind, I felt I should contribute my might to rejuvenate, revise, and that the demands have also already been raised by a very befitting person. So record this demands and convey or communicate them to the proper authorities, so that they are taken in out of, if possible, all the four. Let us try to realize all the four demands, and if not, at least 2-3 of them we should try to execute or secure them. And let me finish. Let me not take more time. I remember. Let me quote Rabindranath, who on Leela Nagh's release from prison wrote some words of blessings for her. He wrote, quote, "Bijoyini nai tabu bhoy, dukkhyo badhai tabu joy, অন্যায়ের অপমান." Let me repeat, অন্যায়ের অপমান. Let me replace the word Jayashree. The Jayashree is the publication that that Leela Nagh wrote it. Let us replace it with the publisher Leela Nagh. And it is really very shameful that on the 50th year of our liberation, Leela Nagh's ancestral home has been occupied and kept in grabbed by Rajakar family. Let me not be so somber all through. So to finally finish, let me quote a little again from what another illustrious alumnus of our department in his own time wrote about Leela Nagh. This is Buddhadev Boshu. Once he had a strange experience, and he narrated it like the following. I quote it to indicate how Leela Nagh was really multidimensional, as Paranas has indicated in the title of her paper. Let me quote what Buddhadev Boshu writes about what he found happening. This is in Bangla. ঢাকা যে বিপ্লববাদের পীঠস্থান তা আমার অজানা ছিল না, আর সেই সূত্রে একজন নেপথ্য নেত্রী হিসাবে লীলা নাগ নামটি উল্লেখিত হতে শুনতাম। একদিন সন্ধ্যাবেলা বন্ধুদের সঙ্গে রমনায় বেড়াচ্ছি একটি যাত্রীবিহীন বাস আমাদের পাশ দিয়ে আস্তে আস্তে চলে গেল। তার চালক, একজন শাড়ি পরা মহিলা, আমার সঙ্গীদের একজন মৃদুস্বরে বললে, দেখলে ওই লীলা নাগ। আমার জীবন ছিল সম্পূর্ণ সাহিত্যাশ্রিত, রাজনীতির সঙ্গে কোনো প্রত্যক্ষ যোগাযোগ আমার ছিল না। হয়তো সেই জন্যই ঢাকায় বাসকালীন তার সঙ্গে কোনো ব্যক্তিগত যোগাযোগ আমার ঘটেনি। কিন্তু নানাজনের মুখে তার বহুমুখী কৃতিত্ব ও চারিত্রিক নিষ্ঠার কথা শুনে শুনে আমি আমার বয়সী অন্য অনেকেরই মতো তার প্রতি একটি বিস্ময় মিশ্রিত শ্রদ্ধা অনুভব করতাম। Unquote. So this gives us a measure of how really and unbelievably multidimensional was Leela Nagh's activities, her studies and her activism in total. Let me finish. Thank you for giving me attention, listening to me. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. The floor is now open for questions, and as I can see, two of our participants have already raised their hands.
Nusrat, can I just interrupt? Sorry for a minute.
Sure.
We'll come back to the raised hands, but before that, can we invite any of Leela Nag's family members, if they have joined, to say a few words. We can see Amitabh Nag, another name. Could you kindly say a few words on Leela, if possible? Is anyone here from Leela Nag's family?
Hello.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I am Amitabh Nag. I am calling in from Kolkata.
Can we see your face, please? Can you please turn on your video so that we can see you? It's a privilege. Thank you.
Yes, I don't know whether I can be seen, but
yes,
I hope I can.
Yes, yes, you're visible. Thank you.
And I also have my sister Aparajita Nag and my cousins, Sanghamitra Nag, Nivedita Dash, and Dipanita Dotto. I don't think I have seen anyone else. I was just looking through the list of participants, and it was a great program, primarily because we also get to know the from the first presentation, from the second presentation, from the first presentation, there were so many other people in the Dhaka University who took the legacy forward. And Leela Nag was my father's Pishima aunt, and we have grown up hearing a lot of stories about her in terms of not only the Dhaka University, but also the freedom struggle, the Indian freedom movement, and her association with Subhash Chandra Bosu. I, on part of our family, grateful for this presentation, and all the 4 demands, I think from my behalf, I have the full support, and if anything is required from our end, we will try to do our best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nag.
Thank you.
Now I think, Nusrat, if anybody else from your family wants to say a few words, they can, or else we'll move on to the raised hands. Nusrat, I think so you can request Shahada to speak. Thank you.
If I can, if Sayyid Manzoor al-Islam I can see here, so he could also speak. If I'm requesting him,
I prefer not to speak on every occasion. I heard everyone's beautiful speeches being made, and what you said, Rashida, makes complete sense. We must go forward with the agenda, and we must do something to protect the property, establish some kind of museum there. And Dhaka University and English department, particularly Alumni Society, can do a lot to keep her memory alive. And we have heard Farhana speak about the legacy that she left behind, which had been shared by many of our faculty. And I do hope this will continue. And Naveen has told us that more girls are taking admission in English department. I'm sure each one of them will be a torchbearer in the tradition of Leela Nag. So it's a delightful occasion. I'm very happy to be a participant, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Madam, should I continue?
Yes, I think.
Okay, so Rebecca Madam also raised her hand. So Shahadat, hi, can I request you to, if I allow Rebecca Madam now?
Of course, please, ma'am first, of course.
Thank you. Rebecca Madam, over to you.
Madam, are you here?
She was
Rebecca,
here.
Madam, you have to unmute yourself if you're speaking. I can't see her, by the way.
She was
I
here.
think she's not here now.
Okay. She's not here. Shadat Bhai, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Sir Ikanajan, very good morning from Ottawa, sir. APA, respected faculty members of the department, alumni members and guests. First of all, I just want to say wonderful job by Sadi and Farhanaz, blown away by your presentation. I mean, I did not expect this at all, but I'm absolutely blown away. Anytime you are presenting anything, please call me because I'd love to sit in the audience just to listen. Rashidappa, once again, great hearing from you and your proposals. I would like to add one other thing to your 4 proposal, and that is EDAS can immediately take up a scholarship, provide a scholarship for one of our master's students, or could be an undergrad student as well, female student, and the scholarship can be named Leela Nag Scholarship. And this is something, the funding, I will raise the funds for this. And if I fail to raise the funds, I will support it myself. So this will come as an EDAS scholarship. And in future, if we are able to raise sufficient funds, I think we can also include scholarships for Razia Khan Amin Madam, as well as Nader Haq Madam. So that's something that I will actively pursue from the Alumni Society. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Shadat Bhai. We can see some questions in the chat box, but you can also raise your hand, as I said earlier. So just start from the beginning. There are a few questions for the presenters. There is one question by Salika. Well, she also placed an observation. Should I read that out? Nevin, madam, should I read her comments or just the question?
No, go ahead.
Salika said that we are living in the age of questioning our freedom of speech along with our every political activity. Where is our space to channel the strong inspiration from such strong women, political activists like Leela Nag, Nadira Begum, and Razia Amin Khan? Or have we actually passed the space and time already for channeling it? Keeping my bewilderment aside, I have a question on why it is not possible, or probably why it has not happened yet, to include writings of these amazing activists in our departmental curriculum. The question comes because, being a literature student, I personally feel that we need to be more connected to our roots and have such discussion of feminism from the women who are closer to us by land, by life, and by struggles. This is my humble request to consider this proposition, as I think if there is the question to celebrate our history and protect the memories of such incredible, larger than life women, the first step should be taken probably from the department, part of their journey. So this was Salika, one of our students. She's from 4th year, and maybe Farnas madam can address this question. Madam?
Yes, I would love to answer the question because these are the same thoughts I had when I first read Razia Khan Amin's poems. I had her as a teacher in the 2nd year. We all knew that she was a recipient of the Ekushé Padak and the Bangla Academy Award, but I had no idea about her English poems, how powerful they were. So when I read them, I immediately felt like we should teach these poems to our students. Our students need to know about these poems because they're so relevant today. That is the most important factor about these poems. Razia Khan Amin's poems are so relevant today. We can relate to the events. We can connect it with everything that is happening around us today. So I strongly believe that Razia Madam's poems could be integrated into our syllabus someday soon, maybe someday in the future. Since the books are out of print, there are problems, of course, in getting these poems. I got them after a lot of struggle. I got Argus Under Anesthesia from the US. A friend in US ordered it on Amazon. Amazon was not willing to ship it to me. They did not want to ship just one copy of the book all the way to Bangladesh. So I got a friend to get it for me from the US, and I got Cruel April from a family member in Australia. So it was very difficult to get these poems, but I'm so happy I went to the trouble of getting them. So I hope we can share it with the students of the department soon. Thank you.
Madam.
Yeah, with the permission of the chair, can I come in here just to share? With regard to this question, that why we can't have our professors like, Razia Khan Amin's poems, etc. We have to lobby for that. We have to do it. Otherwise, nobody will do it. That's one point. We need to, and if our department should be coming forward with that, particularly EDAS even may come. But let me tell you that our students, they need these type of role models. They should know about. When I took Nishat Majumdar, the first woman Everest conqueror from Bangladesh, to a high school, girls, to motivate them to stop child marriage and not to go for, allowing their parents. Then these students asked us, myself, I was there, and Professor Zafar Iqbal was also there. And they asked them that why we have these Everest conquerors. Why do we have to still know about and learn about Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary while we have our own? That kind of attitude should be there, because these students, they need these role models and they need these inspirations from our teachers who passed away before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashida.
May I say something? May I update a little in information? So far I know, relations of Rajia Madam, they have recently taught a whole anthology of Rajia Madam's poems. So this book is now in the market, and
yes, sir.
The problem of availability of poems. Copy of that book.
Yes, sir. A collection of poems from both the books were compiled together, and they were recently published in 2014, I think. But I was talking about the original books that went out of print. So yes, now it is available because of
that happens.
Yes.
Original prints go out of print.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, madam. Farnaz, madam, we have a few questions for you in the chat box, and I would read Ahmed Asanujaman sir's question. Sir said, my respect, quote, my respect to our teachers as well as the first alumna of our department, Leela Nag. However, I wonder if you could shed light on your methodology, why you chose to talk about Professor Nadra Begum and Razi Amin. Farnaz, madam, that question was for you.
Actually, when I was doing research on Leela Nag, I was looking for notable or famous women who were activists. And during the language movement around the 1940s and 50s, Nadira Begum was very vocal. So while Leela Nag was active in the anti-British movement, I chose Nadira Begum because she participated in the movements during that time. 40s, 50s, leading up to the 60s. So it was an important time for us, for creating the identity of the Bangladeshis. So that's why I chose Nadira Begum. And Razia Khan Amin, as I said, I was fascinated with her when I first got the book. I had no idea about her poems, but since she was also nationally recognized, recipient of so many awards, and her Bangla literary works were celebrated everywhere when she received the awards, but her English poems were neglected. And I was curious to know more about her poems, which were not discussed. We do not find any research work on her poems, not as much. So that's why I chose her. And honestly, if I had another hour, I would talk about other prolific writers of our department. Maybe sometime 5 years from now, we can talk about the poets of our department who have published books and whose poems have gone unnoticed. So yes, so that is how I chose these 3 women. Thank you.
Madam Ahmed sir raised his hand. Probably he wants to say something. Sir, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Farhanaz. I really enjoyed your presentation, and you answered the question pretty well. I'm satisfied. But I have one more observation. That is, you talked about Bangladesh Mujur Rahman and the expulsion from Dhaka University. The point is that I'm a bit curious. What does the official order say? Because I have come across different versions. In one of the version, it goes like this, that he was spared. In another version, it reads like this, that he was rusticated. So if you, I don't know whether you have researched into that. That is, what is the actual order regarding Banglamundo's expulsion or rustication from Dhaka University in 1949?
I actually do not have the original records, but it's due to the pandemic, I could not do a lot of research, but this is just, on the basic level, I did research in the basic level. So this is the information I had. He was expelled, and of course his expulsion was, that expulsion was removed later.
Yes,
after
2 years
independence.
ago.
I do not know whether he was expelled or rusticated. I'm not sure. If anyone in this panel knows, then, because I did not have a chance to go through history books for this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Farnaz madam. Zareen madam has raised her hand. So madam, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
All right, thank you. It was a very interesting presentation. Since we are talking about Leela Nag, I just thought I would point out that her Shongo and the society and her work had inspired another revolutionary that everybody might know better, Priti Lata Wadekar. So Priti Wadekar was directly influenced by Leela Nag. And this idea of women in Dhaka University being politically conscious and activist, this is something that A.G. Stock, whom Farhanaz has indirectly referenced, but A.G. Stock writes clearly that she found it not strange, but she observed it, that women were going out and protesting on the streets, but in class they were very quiet, they were very submissive, they were very feminine, and they never went to cinemas without any chaperone. So it's just an interesting, and it's true of general of, I think, the Indian anti-colonial or national movement as well, that women could be feminine and politically very active. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Zareen ma'am. We also have Humaira Chaudhary. She raised her hand. So Humaira, you can unmute yourself.
All right, thank you for the opportunity. আমি বাংলাতেই বলি কারণ আমরা তো সব এখানে বাঙালি। তো আমি একটা স্লাইড পাঠিয়েছিলাম, আমি ওটা নিয়েই বারবার বলছি কারণ আমি আমার অভিজ্ঞতাটা শেয়ার করি। আমি জেসিআই ছিলাম 1 বছরের জন্য। তো যখন আমি একটা প্রজেক্ট লঞ্চ করলাম, আমাদের একটা রেফারেন্স ছিল যে মানিকগঞ্জে পায়রাতে একটা ভালো স্কুল আছে এবং সেখানে নিউট্রিশন নিয়ে নিউট্রিশন ক্লাব নিয়ে, কারণ তখন বাংলাদেশ সরকারের এরকম প্রজেক্ট ছিল। তো পরে আমরা ওই সরকারি থেকে আমরা নিয়ে গিয়েছিলাম জেসিআই একটা ন্যাশনাল প্রজেক্ট হিসেবে, এবং গিয়ে আমি খুব অবাক হয়ে গেছিলাম যে ওটা হচ্ছে বায়রা মানিকগঞ্জে, এবং স্কুলটা মেয়েদের স্কুল ছিল, অল গার্লস স্কুল, এবং ক্লাস 1 থেকে উনি বোধহয় প্রাইমারি পর্যন্ত করেছেন, বাট ক্লাস 1 থেকে 8 পর্যন্ত আছে, এবং সেখানে মানে সবই আছে, ডিজিটাল ল্যাব থেকে আরম্ভ করে সবই, এবং ওটা মানিকগঞ্জের ঘিওরে সম্ভবত, এবং লীলা নাগের শ্বশুর বাড়ি মানে যেটা অনিল রয় ওনার যে হাজবেন্ড ছিলেন, ওনাদের এস্টেটের স্কুল ওটা। এবং ওখানে আমি একটা স্লাইড শেয়ার করেছি, সেখানে আছে যে ওখানে লেখা আছে স্থাপিত শ্রী অনিল রয় এবং লীলাবতী রয়। তা আমি এখন উইকিপিডিয়া তো খুঁজলাম যে আমি কি ভুল করছি কিনা, কিন্তু আমি দেখি যে না, ঠিকই ওনার নাম লীলাবতী রয় হিসেবে ওখানে ছিল। এবং ওনারা দুজন মিলে ওখানে ওটা প্রতিষ্ঠা করেছিলেন। তো অনিল রায় নিজে জমিদার ফ্যামিলির ছেলে ছিলেন, দুজনেই ও সময় জেল কেটেছিলেন এবং পরে এখান থেকে বাংলাদেশ থেকে ওনারা চলে যান। কিন্তু ওনাদের স্মৃতি এখনো আছে এবং আমি তখন জানতাম না, আমি গিয়ে তখন দেখি। তো উনি যেখানেই গেছেন, যেটা সবচেয়ে বড় ওনার ব্যাপারে রিমার্কেবল, যে উনি যেখানেই ছিলেন, যে পরিস্থিতি ছিলেন, উনি কিন্তু মেয়েদেরকে নিয়ে কাজ করে গেছেন এবং এটা একটা বড় একটা অনুপ্রেরণা আমাদের জন্য। এবং আমি সবার সঙ্গে একমত, আমাদের যারা সিনিয়ররা বলছেন, জুনিয়ররা বলছেন, যত প্রেজেন্টেশন যাচ্ছে, যে আমাদের আসলেই কিছু করা উচিত, কারণ এই স্মৃতিগুলো ধরে রাখতে হবে। এবং এখানে ধর্ম কোনো বিষয় না। আমি যেটা বাংলাদেশে দেখি যে সম্পত্তি দখল, স্মৃতিগুলো দখল, নাম বদল, এগুলো একটা কমন একটা কনসেপ্ট হয়ে গেছে। কিন্তু আমাদের তো মানুষের কীর্তিটাকে আগে মাথায় রাখতে হবে। ধর্মটা তো এখানে মুখ্য ছিল না। উনি যেভাবে ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটিতে ঢুকেছিলেন, মাস্টার্সে ঢুকেছিলেন, এটাও কিন্তু একটা ফাইট করার মতো, মানে ফাইট করে ওনাকে ঢুকতে হয়েছিল। তো আমি মনে করি আমাদের জন্য উনি একটা বড় ইন্সপিরেশন এবং আমাদের এটা নিয়ে আরো ফোকাস করে এবং স্থায়ীভাবে কিছু করার জন্য চিন্তা করা উচিত। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, Humarapa. There are a few comments in the chat box, so I will just read out a few. I'll start with Sabiha Haq. She says, it's good to see the department has raised its voice against the state perpetrated oblivion, at least after 50 years of our independence. Thanks to the department and the participants for the arrangements. Rashida Appa's demands should be supported by all to reinstate the rightful respect of the illustrious alumna of the department. So that was by Sabiha Madam, and there are a few other comments as well. Let me read out Muhammad Haider sir's comment. He says, this is great listening to the speakers. In our society, contributions of women, whatever exceptional they might be, remain underrated. Why should this convention still go on, even at this era of women empowerment? So this is by Professor Muhammad Zulfikar Haider from Mymensingh Government Women Minister Mohila College. And then we also have comments by Sumaya Kabir, our former student, who says that there should be a course titled Bangladeshi English Literature and something like that. So there are many questions and observations regarding our departmental curriculum. And Zareen from our department also made an observation. She said in our, yes, Tamina Madam. Yes, sir.
May I make a small correction to one speaker who was saying that Leela Roy and Anil Rai left our country. They were made to leave. Leela Roy and Anil Rai were so much so resolved to stay back in East Pakistan and go on working like how they were doing. But the Pakistan government, like how it was, they compelled them to live in this country. So this is a very meaningful piece of information, because this is how communalism and reactionary attitude of a government, of a typical rightist and communal government works and persecutes people and compels people to leave their motherland. So this is how it happened. It was not they are leaving the country. They were made to leave the country.
এটা আমি উইকিপিডিয়াতে পেয়েছি স্যার। I absolutely concur with you, but you know how it's written. সেখান থেকে আমি বলছি, কারণ আমরা তো জানি কি হয়েছিল। They were persecuted, they were asked to leave, and এভাবে অনেক এক্সপ্রেস হয়েছে। কিন্তু উইকিপিডিয়াতে এটা লেখা আছে, আমি জাস্ট একটু আগে চেক করলাম, just to be sure that আমি ভুল বলছি কিনা। তো ওটা ওখানে লেখা আছে, ওটাই বলেছি, not intentional and not to make it other concept.
Thank you, Myra and Kajal Banerjee, sir. Can we take Tamina Appa's comments, please? Because we are crossing our time limit. So Tamina Appa, please.
Okay, I'll try to be as short as possible. Actually, I'd like to respond to Asan's question to Farha. And since I have the book with me, I thought it would be a good opportunity to tell everyone what Rangolal Chakraborty has written. Asan, this is the book by Rangolal Chakraborty, Dr. Ratanlal Chakraborty, sorry, Ratanlal Chakraborty, Dhaka Vishwavidyalaya Agranthito Itihash. And here he has brought up that question that what actually happened to our father of the nation. And he said that actually, I'm reading out from his book, তার আবাসিক মর্যাদা কেড়ে নেওয়া হয় এবং তাকে 15 টাকা জরিমানা করা হয়. And he says record of this exists in the records of our Senate and syndicate. And it also was mentioned when later Bangabandhu applied to sit for his law exam from the jail. And he also has a quotation about that. So Hasan, I think if you're very much interested, I could get this book for you and you could take a look. That's all.
Thank you, Appa. So if I could.
Yes, thank you, Kamina Appa. Nusrat, if, because it's already 9:15.
Yes, ma'am.
I think
we can conclude the question session.
It's interesting to listen to everyone, I'm sure. Oh, okay, Humaira has 2 slides to share. She was telling me to share, but I couldn't, so I requested her to share instead. These are from her presentations that she gave in Manikganj. Please enjoy. Humaira, if you want to add anything to these 2 slides. Humaira, we can't hear you.
So this is the school. On the left, এটা হচ্ছে আপনার স্কুলের গেটটা। আপনি একটু হাত দিয়ে একটু পিঞ্চ করে জুম করে দেখেন, তাহলে দেখবেন যেখানে লেখা আছে 1940 এবং নিচে অনিল রয় এবং লীলাবতী রয়। তো আমি এটা দেখে উইকিপিডিয়াতে সার্চ করলাম যে আমি ভুল দেখছি কিনা। আমি আশা করি লীলা নাগের ফ্যামিলি মেম্বাররা যারা কলকাতা এবং মুম্বাই থেকে জয়েন করেছেন তারা দেখতে পারবেন। এটা আপনাদের দিকের ফ্যামিলিরই প্রতিষ্ঠান এবং সম্ভবত এটা পুরো এস্টেটের জায়গা। এবং এটা হচ্ছে ভেতরে আমরা দেখছিলাম, আমরা ঘুরে ঘুরে দেখছিলাম যে কোথায় কি ক্লাস হচ্ছে এবং কোথায় আমরা কি করতে পারি। তো এটা খুবই নামকরা এবং ঐতিহ্যবাহী স্কুল এবং সম্ভবত মানিকগঞ্জের একমাত্র উইমেন্স স্কুল ছিল তখন, এখন তো আরো কতগুলো হয়েছে। কিন্তু ওখানে মেয়েরা খুবই অর্গানাইজ, তারা ওখানে একটু পিঞ্চ করে ধরে দেখতে হবে। হ্যাঁ, তো এখন যেটা হচ্ছে যে ওদের নাম লেখা আছে, আমি দেখে আমি একদম চমকে গিয়েছিলাম যে আমি ভুল দেখছি কিনা বা আমি ঠিক দেখছি কিনা। মানে ইট ওয়াজ জাস্ট রিয়েলি মানে প্লেজেন্টলি শকিং। কিন্তু খুব ভালো লেগেছিল কারণ আমি ওনার সম্বন্ধে জানতাম, অনেক ডিটেইলসে জানতাম না, কিন্তু জানতাম আমি 2017 ঘটনা এটা। তো আমরা আশা করি যে আপনারা অনেক দুঃখ কষ্ট অভিমান সবকিছুই আছে, কিন্তু আমাদের সঙ্গে যোগাযোগটা রাখবেন এবং আমরাও আশা করি কিছু করতে পারবো ডিপার্টমেন্ট থেকে। এবং বাংলাদেশ সরকারেরও উচিত কিছু করা। আপনারা অ্যাকচুয়ালি যদি ভারত সরকারের সঙ্গে যোগাযোগ করেন, বাংলাদেশ এমবাসির সঙ্গে যোগাযোগ, হাই কমিশনের সঙ্গে যোগাযোগ করেন, তাহলে হয়তো বা একটা কিছু শুরু হতে পারে, আমার সেটা মনে হয়। তো আমি গর্বিত এবং ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি আমাকে শেয়ার করতে সুযোগ দেওয়ার জন্য। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, Humairappa. And with this, we are at the end of our webinar today. And on behalf of the department and the webinar committee, I extend my heartfelt thanks to the participants for their presence and contributions to the webinar. Special thanks to our speakers, Ms. Rashida Chaudhary and Ms. Farnas Rubani, for enlightening us with your insights. We also thank our former student Sadi for his wonderful presentation on Leela Nag's contribution. And thank you, Sadi, for letting us revisit Leela Nag's ancestral home and establishments through your eyes. We wholeheartedly thank our chairperson, Dr. Nevin Farida, for her constant guidance and immense support, without which this webinar wouldn't have been a success. Madam, despite being unwell for the past 2-3 weeks, has maintained excellent communication with each of us, including the speakers of the webinar, and made sure everything is on track. She's always ready to take the extra mile, and that's what inspires us to work hard for the department. We also have the committee members to thank for. The other members are Tasneem Madam, Romana Appa, and myself. We especially thank Tasneem Madam and her daughter, Thea Ariana, for designing the beautiful flyers for the event. Ms. Romana Rafiq for being an excellent coordinator, for creating and managing the Facebook online event, and for designing the program outline. Special thanks goes to Batul Sarar Madam for suggesting the webinar title. And we also thank Bashir Sir for his wonderful support, and our department staff, Mr. Hanan, was also there for any sort of help. So we also thank Hanan Bhai for this. Thank you all participants for your wonderful comments and observations that we have read in the chat box. Sorry, I couldn't read out all of them, but it was a pleasure to see you all responding to the presenters' presentations. And with this, we conclude the session, and thank you everyone for attending and for your comments and questions. We hope you enjoyed our session, and we look forward to more. That's it. Goodbye. Madam, would you like to
thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Stay
you.
well.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.